Hey there, if you had a way to tell Captain George C. Thomas Jr. that a rose that he bred in 1914 would go on to become one of the biggest selling roses around the world each year, he'd be pretty proud of that. You won't find the name of his best-selling rose in any catalogue, however, because these days the world is only interested in its roots and actually dislikes the rest of the plant. But for George this would be just fine, because this was all part of his grand vision. Dr. Huey, as his rose became known, is the understock for most of the grafted roses sold around the world. It's also a nicely satisfying story of two great American rose enthusiasts and pioneers. Dr. Robert Huey, a tenacious Civil War escapee who walked 387 miles north, barefoot, to escape horrific POW conditions, and his protege in later life, George C. Thomas, the captain, who had to wait for another war to finish before releasing that 1914 seedling. And that's the same one that Huey and Thomas later chose to name after, well, the good doctor himself. And the understock? Well, that particular hybrid, a climber, bursts with energy. And that's perfect for grafted roses. You can think of it like a double-decker bus. Dr. Huey is on the lower deck and drives and does all the work, while the Scion rose sits on the top deck and picks up all the praise for the fantastic looks and great fragrance. So the captain's plan was for Dr. Huey to introduce new breeds of rose from his base underground. But it turns out that the doctor himself still harbours his own urge for freedom. And this can cause surprises if you're the owner of a relatively long-lived grafted rose. And that's because he'll send his cherry red blooms up to nestle among the main plant's flowers, regardless of their original colour. And if you leave this for too long, he'll take over the whole plant, which means bye-bye to the top deck's passengers. But here, the horse, or the doctor, has already bolted, so I definitely don't have this problem. But for the wrong reasons. That's because the doctor took over this particular plant a long time ago. But that doesn't mean it's curtains for the other rose from the moment the doctor shows his face. But you do have to remove the sucker at the roots, or there will come a time where the balance is tipped. And at that point, the Scion rose gets binned. But I do like him. Spontaneous, resilient, and a bit sneaky. Oh, and first out the traps in spring. And just like his namesake, Dr. Huey is the ultimate jailbreaker. But not everyone's happy when he pops up above ground. In fact, today he's really unwelcome. And not just for attempting to take over someone's prized white roses, but because, to our eyes, he has a relatively short flush of flowers in spring, and the flowers are quite small with minimal fragrance. We owe this hard worker a debt, and although the tendency to throw up suckers can be a little frustrating, I think it's time to say to Dr. Huey, thank you, respect, and welcome to spring. If you have a rose that you love that's being invaded by Dr. Huey, keep an eye out for part 2, and I'll show you how to reverse this. Thanks so much for watching.